Why do we reach for snacks when stressed? Or why does our hand instinctively grab the phone to scroll through social media during a quiet moment? These actions feel automatic, almost unconscious. But here's the truth. They're not random, they're habits, and understanding how habits work gives us the power to change them. Charles Duhigg, author of The Power of Habit, explains this process using what he calls the habit loop, a simple yet profound framework made up of 3 parts: cue, routine, and reward. This cycle governs much of our daily behavior, from brushing our teeth in the morning to mindlessly checking emails every hour. Once you understand it, you can start breaking bad habits or building better ones. But long before Duhigg decoded the science behind habits, another thinker had already recognized their transformative power. William James, often called the father of American psychology, wrote about habits as the flywheel of society in his groundbreaking book, The Principles of Psychology, 1890. He believed that habits shape destiny itself, because once ingrained, they guide everything we do, often without us even realizing it. Imagine this. James argued that if someone simply resolved to take a 10-minute walk each day, that's small, habit could ripple outward, influencing other areas of their life. Relatable, isn't it? We've all experienced how one tiny shift, a new workout routine, or even drinking more water, can spark bigger changes over time. So today we'll explore how Duhigg's modern insights align with James's timeless wisdom. Together they give us a blueprint for mastering the habit loop and reclaiming control of our lives. Because whether it's resisting those late-night snacks or silencing distractions, learning to break your habit loop starts right now. Habits are the invisible threads that weave through our days, shaping who we are and what we become. But how do they form in the first place? Charles Duhigg's groundbreaking research reveals a simple yet powerful framework he calls the habit loop. A 3-step process involving a cue, a routine, and a reward. Let's break this down, because understanding is like holding the blueprint to your own behavior. Imagine waking up in the morning. Your feet hit the floor, you shuffle to the bathroom, and without even thinking about it, you pick up your toothbrush, squeeze on some paste, and start brushing. What just happened there? The cue was waking up. The trigger that told your brain, it's time for this familiar action. The routine was brushing itself, an activity so ingrained you could practically do it in your sleep. And the reward, that satisfying minty freshness or the feeling of cleanliness that signals to your brain, job well done. This cycle, cue, routine, reward, is the engine behind every habit, big or small. Now let's make this relatable. Think about something as mundane as checking your phone first thing in the morning. Why does it happen almost automatically? It starts with the cue, a buzz, a notification light, or simply reaching over to grab your device as part of your morning ritual. Then comes the routine, scrolling through emails, social media, or news headlines. Finally, the reward, the dopamine, hit from seeing something interesting or urgent, which tricks your brain into thinking, this is important. Over time, this loop becomes automatic, often at the expense of more meaningful activities. William James understood the power of habits long before modern neuroscience confirmed it. He famously wrote that habits are the enormous flywheel of society, conserving mental energy and freeing the mind for higher pursuits. Picture this: if you had to consciously think through every decision, how to brush your teeth, how to tie your shoes, how to navigate your commute, you'd be mentally exhausted by noon. Instead, habits allow us to automate repetitive tasks, preserving our cognitive resources for creativity, problem solving, and deeper thought. In essence, good habits don't just simplify life, they elevate it. Studies show that nearly 40% of Our daily actions aren't decisions, but habits operating on autopilot. That means almost half of your day might be running on these loops, whether you realize it or not. So when Duhigg talks about conserving mental energy, he's echoing James's insight that habits create space for growth and purpose. They take care of the mundane, giving us room to dream bigger, live fuller, and focus on what truly matters. So here's the takeaway. Habits aren't random quirks. They're predictable patterns wired into our brains. Once you recognize the cue routine reward structure, you begin to see it everywhere. From brushing your teeth to checking your phone, each habit follows the same script. And once you understand that script, you hold the key to rewriting it. Because habits may shape destiny, but they also offer endless opportunities for transformation. Think about the last time you felt stressed, maybe after a long day or during a busy work week. What did you do? Maybe you reached for a bag of chips, scrolled endlessly through social media, or poured yourself a glass of wine. These actions feel instinctive, almost like reflexes. But here's the catch. They're not. They're habits, and they follow a script written by your brain. The key to changing them lies in uncovering that script. Let's start with a simple exercise. For the next few days, try this. Every time you notice yourself slipping into a habit, whether it's biting your nails, checking your phone, or stress eating, pause. Ask yourself 3 questions. What just triggered this? The cue. What am I doing? The routine. What am I getting out of it? The reward. For example, if you're snacking at 3 p.m., the cue might be boredom or fatigue. The routine is eating a cookie, and the reward is a temporary sugar rush or distraction. This process of tracking isn't about judgment. It's about shining a light on the invisible gears turning in your mind. Now let me tell you about Eugene. He was a man who, after suffering severe brain damage, couldn't remember his own house or recognize his grandchildren. Yet every morning, he'd wake up, get dressed, and make coffee. Habits he'd formed over decades. Even without conscious memory, his brain still ran on autopilot. Researchers studying Eugene discovered something profound. Habits are stored in the oldest part of our brains, the basal ganglia, which operates entirely on autopilot. This is why, even when we vow to change, old habits cling like shadows. William James understood this duality. He warned that habits, while efficient, could also enslave us. Habit is thus the enormous flywheel of society, he wrote, its conservative power keeping us tethered to the status quo. But here's the twist. James also believed that awareness is the antidote. When we bring habits into the light, when we dissect the cue, routine, and reward, we reclaim agency. Think of it like debugging a computer program. You can't fix the code if you don't know where it's broken. Here's a relatable truth. Habits aren't just about willpower. They're about architecture. Imagine your brain as a labyrinth of neural pathways, each habit a well-worn trail. Every time you repeat a routine, you deepen that path. But, and this is crucial, you can forge new trails. It starts with noticing the old ones. The next time you feel that 3 p.m. craving, instead of reaching for a snack, try a cup of tea or a 5-minute walk. The cue, boredom, stays the same, but you swap the routine, snacking, for something healthier. Over time, your brain learns to crave the new reward, calm instead of calories. The beauty of this process is that it works for any habit, big or small. Whether you're trying to quit smoking, stop procrastinating, or simply drink more water, the framework remains the same. You're not fighting your brain, you're rewiring it. And as James reminds us, this rewiring isn't just personal, it's societal. When we change our habits, we alter the flywheel itself, creating ripples that extend far beyond our own lives. So ask yourself, what's one habit you'd like to understand better? What's the real reward you're chasing? The answers might surprise you, because once you see the loop, you can't unsee it. And once you can't unsee it, you're already one step closer to changing it. To rewire a habit, you don't eradicate the loop, you redesign it. Charles Duhigg's research reveals that the key lies in keeping the same cue and reward, but swapping out the routine. Suppose stress triggers a craving for sugary snacks. Instead of reaching for a cookie, you could lace up your shoes and take a brisk walk. The cue, stress, and reward, comfort, remain. But the routine shifts from mindless eating to movement. This subtle swap disrupts the autopilot cycle, redirecting your brain toward healthier outcomes without denying the craving. History offers a striking parallel. In 1521, a Spanish knight named Ignatius of Loyola lay bedridden after a cannonball shattered his leg. Bored and restless, he asked for books of chivalry, but was given texts about saints instead. As he read, he noticed a pattern. Daydreams of glory left him empty, while meditations on faith brought lasting peace. Ignatius began substituting his old habits of ambition with spiritual practices, eventually founding the Jesuit order. His transformation wasn't about denying his impulses, but redirecting them, a 16th century testament to Duhigg's modern insight. William James understood this principle deeply. He warned that habits once formed carve grooves in the mind, making them harder to escape. But he also insisted on hope. The hell to be endured hereafter is no worse than the hell we make for ourselves in this world by habitually fashioning our characters in the wrong way. His message: change is possible if we consciously substitute destructive routines with purposeful ones. So how do you make this shift stick? Science points to implementation intentions, specific actionable plans like, if I feel stressed, I will meditate for 5 minutes, or if I crave a cigarette, I'll chew gum instead. Studies show these if-then strategies increase success rates by up to 300% as they anchor new behaviors to familiar triggers. A 2023 study found that employees who replaced afternoon coffee breaks with 5-minute stretching sessions reported higher focus and lower stress. Proof that even small habit tweaks can ripple outward. The brain doesn't resist change, it seeks efficiency. Give it a better routine and it will adapt. Rewiring habits isn't about fighting yourself, it's about outsmarting the loop. Keeping the cues and rewards you know, then crafting routines that align with the life you want. Ignatius traded battlefield fantasies for spiritual discipline. You might trade scrolling for journaling or nail-biting for deep breathing. The loop remains, but the outcome transforms. That's the power of substitution, a tool as old as human, resilient and as fresh as today's neuroscience. The human brain is a creature of efficiency. It craves patterns, shortcuts, and routines to conserve energy. But what happens when those routines no longer serve us? Charles Duhigg's answer is simple yet revolutionary. Don't try to extinguish the habit, rewire it. The key lies in preserving the cue and reward while swapping out the routine. For instance, if stress, the cue, drives you to snack mindlessly, the reward isn't the food itself, but the comfort it provides. Replace the snacking with a walk, and the brain still receives its comfort through movement and fresh air, while the destructive routine fades. This idea of substitution isn't new. In the 1500s, the French philosopher Michel de Montaigne, a man who documented his own struggles with anxiety and restlessness, stumbled upon this truth centuries before modern neuroscience. After losing his closest friend to illness, Montaigne spiraled into grief, seeking solace in wine, a routine that numbed his pain but left him depleted. One evening, instead of reaching for the bottle, he wandered into his library and began writing. The act of putting pen to paper became his new routine, transforming his grief into clarity. The cue, loneliness, and reward, emotional relief, remained, but the substituted routine, writing, reshaped his life. His essays, born from this shift, became timeless reflections on human nature. William James, too, understood the stakes of habit, substitution. He warned that the hell we make for ourselves isn't forged in a single moment, but through relentless unconscious repetition. His solution? Actively fashion our characters by redirecting habits toward purposeful ends. If Montaigne had clung to wine, his legacy might have been one of dissolution. Instead, he chose substitution and gifted the world a blueprint for introspection. So how do you engineer this shift? Duhigg emphasizes implementation intentions, specific, actionable plans that link cues to new routines. For example, if I feel stressed, I will meditate for 5 minutes, or if I crave a cigarette, I will chew gum. These micro-commitments bypass willpower by automating the response. A study cited in Atomic Habits reveals that people who frame goals this way are 2 to 30 times more likely to succeed, as the brain treats the intention as a rule rather than a choice. The story of a 16th century Venetian merchant, Alvise da Cadamosto, who struggled with compulsive gambling. After losing his fortune, he replaced nightly visits to the gaming house with evening walks along the canals, journaling reflections under the stars. The cue, boredom, and reward, stimulation, stayed intact. But the routine shifted, saving his livelihood and sanity. His journals, discovered centuries later, reveal a man who mastered the art of substitution long before it had a name. The lesson here is profound. Habits are not destiny. They are malleable, waiting to be redirected. Whether it's Montaigne, trading wine for wisdom, or a modern professional swapping scrolling for mindfulness, the path to change lies in honoring the loop while rewriting its script. The next time you feel the pull of an old habit, remember, the cue and reward are your allies. It's the routine that's yours to reinvent. At the heart of every habit lies a quiet, often overlooked force: craving. It's not just the routine itself that keeps us hooked. It's the anticipation of the reward. Think of how the smell of coffee triggers a longing for its warmth, or how the quiet hum of a notification sparks the urge to check your phone. These cravings are the engine of the habit loop, driving behavior even when logic says otherwise. Charles Duhigg reveals that the most successful habit changes don't just swap routines. They harness this craving to make new behaviors feel irresistible. Take the story of Pepsodent, a toothpaste that revolutionized dental hygiene in the early 20th century. Its creator, Claude Hopkins, didn't just sell a product, he engineered a craving. By emphasizing the tingling sensation users felt after brushing, Hopkins transformed a mundane chore into a sensory ritual. Customers began associating that minty freshness with cleanliness itself, creating a craving so powerful it became a daily necessity. Within a decade, toothpaste use skyrocketed, proving that habits thrive when they're tied to a reward the brain wants to seek. But how do we cultivate cravings for habits that truly serve us? Here we turn to William James, the 19th century philosopher who grappled with the tension between human will and habit. In 1890, amid his own battles with melancholy, James penned a radical idea. The will to believe could reshape not just our thoughts, but our very character. He argued that belief in a desired outcome, whether it's resilience, focus, or kindness, acts as a catalyst for change. By consciously nurturing a craving for that outcome, we align our habits with deeper aspirations. James himself practiced this, using daily walks and disciplined writing routines to combat despair, proving that even in darkness, habit could be a ladder toward light. This principle isn't confined to toothpaste or personal struggles. Consider the 19th century abolitionist Frederick Douglass, who transformed his craving for freedom into a habit of relentless advocacy. His intellectual rigor, honed through stolen moments of reading and writing, became a ritual that fueled His mission, Douglas understood that cravings, when channeled purposefully, could dismantle even the most entrenched patterns of thought and action. So how do we apply this today? Start by identifying the craving beneath your habit. If you snack, when stressed, ask, what reward does the food truly provide? Comfort, distraction? Then replace the routine with an action that satisfies the same craving. Pair this with James's will to believe, a steadfast conviction in your ability to change. Neuroscience backs this. Studies show that when people visualize a reward, before acting, their brains release dopamine, priming them for success. The lesson? Habits are not static. They're dynamic cycles shaped by the cravings we nurture and the beliefs we hold. Whether it's the tingle of toothpaste or the quiet resolve of a philosopher, the seeds of transformation lie in understanding this truth. In the final stretch of our journey, we'll explore how to sustain momentum, because breaking the habit loop isn't just about change. It's about building a life where good habits thrive effortlessly as part of who you are. The clock ticks, a scent of coffee lingers. Your hand reaches for the mug again. This is the habit loop in motion, a dance of cue, routine, reward that has shaped civilizations, not just individuals. From the cobblestone streets of 18th century Philadelphia to the digital glow of your smartphone, habits have always been the silent architects of human life. Benjamin Franklin, that polymath of the Enlightenment, understood this intimately. In 1726, at age 20, he began a lifelong experiment to master his habits. He listed 13 virtues, from temperance to humility, and tracked his adherence in a small leather diary. Each day he marked failures with a black dot, slowly transforming his routines. When he slipped, he didn't despair. He noted the cue, a moment of pride, dissected the reward, a fleeting sense of superiority, and substituted the routine. Humility became his new response. Franklin's genius lay not in perfection, but in his relentless curiosity about the mechanics of habit. Charles Duhigg's science reveals what Franklin intuited centuries ago. Habits are malleable. The loop remains, but the routine can shift. When you feel the pang of stress, the urge to procrastinate, or the craving for distraction, you're not powerless. You're standing at the intersection of cue and reward, where choice becomes possible. William James, that relentless student of human nature, once wrote, "The greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another." His words echo across time because they touch a universal truth. Habits are not fate. They are pathways, and pathways can be rerouted. This week, choose one habit to audit. Let it be small, a daily walk instead of a snack, a breath before reacting, a moment of gratitude instead of complaint. Track the cues that trigger it, the rewards that reinforce it. When Benjamin Franklin sought to master order, he began by rearranging his desk each morning, a tiny ritual that rippled into broader discipline. Your experiment might start with a single deliberate action, but its effects could reshape your world. Habits are the invisible architecture of daily life. Redesign them, and you redesign yourself. Duhigg's research and James's philosophy converge here. The brain's plasticity meets the soul's capacity for reinvention. Franklin's diary, now yellowed with age, still whispers the same lesson. The journey from who you are to who you wish to be is paved not with grand gestures, but with the quiet alchemy of habit. The clock ticks again. The coffee mug sits empty, but this time you pause. You notice the cue, you choose. And in that choice, the loop begins to transform.